everyone. Happy Monday night. I can't believe this is episode number 7 of So What Now What TV. And tonight we're going to take it a little bit in a different direction and talk about something that probably should be talked about more, but just really isn't. And a really, really good girlfriend of mine was going through some stuff yesterday, and I noticed it, and I think it should be talked about. And what we're going to talk about tonight is grief. And grief strikes all of us in different ways. And grief tonight is the so what? So everybody has some form of grief. And what we're going to talk about tonight is, the death of a father and how that affected her. And I just have questions about that. I haven't had that happen to me yet. So I really want to dig into that. And grief is something that happens to all of us in different ways. And I think people are dealing with a lot of grief right now. So we're going to take that on tonight. And I just want to remind you guys what So What Now What is. So What Now What is a moment. It's a pivot in your life. It's a time for you to say, I'm no longer going to tolerate the bullshit in my life. I want to do something different. So now what? And the reason for this show is I want to bring on people that can answer that question. Okay, so my father died. Now what? It sucks and I'm in pain. So we're going to talk about that and all these, lots of different, things that come with that. And it's going to get real and raw because Gina Lazarowski is my good friend. And she is one of the most real and raw people that I know. And I love it. I love her for that. And she always tells me the truth and she's always honest with me. And I really, really dig that. And she's helped me through some really rough times in my life. So Gina, welcome.
Hi. This is exciting that we would be here doing this.
I know. This is a long time coming, right?
Totally.
All right. Totally. So let's dig into this. So yesterday sucked for you.
Totally.
Let's tell everybody why.
So it's weird because Easter falls on different times of the month, right? My birthday's in April. My grandmother's birthday's in April. My grandparents' anniversary is in April. Now my dad's life ended in April. So April just sucks for me. I don't get it anymore. I don't care about my birthday. I really was hating Easter yesterday. And I'm sorry for those people that are very Christian.
It had nothing to do with that. It had to do it was what you were relating to as it represents that. It had nothing to do with anybody else's celebration.
I can't say that I've fallen apart like I did yesterday that many times. I'm a tasks and facts kind of girl. What's the task? What are the facts? How do I get this done? And then there's an end point. And when he got the diagnosis.
What was so tell us a little bit of the backstory.
All right. So September 9th, I was at a bar mitzvah. It was the best night of my life. My entire family and friends and everybody I loved was under one roof celebrating this young man. And I was just it doesn't get any better than this. And the next day I get this phone call from my mom. She's screaming, she doesn't know what's going on. She's Korean, so her English isn't very good, especially under stress. And so we think he's having a stroke. We send him to the hospital. He's in the hospital for a week. They don't know what's wrong with him. A bunch of tests. We're in February now. That happened September 10th. We get to February and his entire body was just riddled with lung cancer. So it metastasized. It had already gotten to his liver, we think his kidneys. It was in all of his vertebrae in his back, except for one. And this was all lung cancer and also in his brain. So we had to figure out how we were going to attack this. And it was interesting because my parents never got that he was dying. It had been said, I'd asked the doctor to say it multiple times. I had told my mother 4 or 5 times in this process of 18 months, he's dying. What are you talking about? And I was just so, as a matter of fact, for the majority of this journey. And I thought, grief, it's not going to be a big deal. I'm going to be prepared. And I researched everything I could. And when we got to the end, I still was writing notes to myself in my phone, things that I wanted to go back and revisit. And it said, I was so factual. Everything was a fact point. And I was I like grief like that. Grief in a little box, all the facts, and it's over there.
You can control.
I can control.
Yeah.
And when he died, even the moment he died, I didn't cry. I was relieved for him because he had died probably in the night more so. It was just a body just beating. It was horrific that last night. I don't think anybody's ever prepared for what death looks like when it's like that. It's It's awful. I'll never forget it. I feel totally traumatized. So anyways, I get through 9 days in hospice with him. It was beautiful. There is always beauty in grief if you're willing to look for it. And I found beauty the whole way. And I looked at my husband the moment he died and I said, can I have my puppy now? Like that was, and I know it's such a messed up thing, but I had a dog die while my father was in chemo. We had a last vacation in Cape Cod with my dog. My dad was in chemo, and it was just this big love fest. And my dog died 2 days later, and it was crippling.
And I will tell you, I think that is one of the hardest losses that people go through is when they lose a pet. I mean, that is for real. No one should minimize that. That is a big fucking deal.
And he wasn't even 4 years old. So he was a baby.
Yeah.
And my dad, after the dog died, sent me a text and said, don't get another puppy. Wait. And I knew what he meant. And I understood what that meant. And we had another 13 months to go. And
I want to ask, so I do want to point, I think it's important for people to know who your dad was to you.
Who he was to me.
Yeah. Why this has been so hard for you. It's okay if you cry.
He was the guy that no matter how bad the situation was, and there were a few really bad ones, I could say it to him. He didn't have to approve. It just made it real. And it was like we changed roles. When we found out he had cancer, I became the adult and he became the child, and I carried. And my mom even said to me, because I was crying and I wanted to feel sorry for myself at one point. My mother was like, she's like, no bullshit Korean. Like, she was like, you don't get to be weak. You are the strong one in this and you have to carry it. And that was the end of the conversation. And being a dutiful child, I carried it. I carried it all the way. And I was reading something. And when he got into hospice and he finally woke up from I had finally arrived, they had this pain managed. He looked at me in our first moment alone, and he said, is this it? And I looked at him without a tear in my eye, without missing a beat. Yes. And he said, well, what's going to happen next? Because he knows I'm a researcher. I research everything. I was like, they're going to drug you up so incredibly awesome that you're not even going to notice, and you're just going to fall asleep. And then we'll be the ones dealing with all the yucky stuff, and you'll be free to go.
Yeah.
And we rallied. There's this thing they call a rally. A lot of people don't know this, because if you don't go through some sort of death like this, there's this moment they wake up and you're like, oh my God, there he is. And he got up because nobody knew. Oh, the other kicker to this whole grief story is nobody knew. He didn't want anybody to know. So it was me, my mom, and my dad, and of course my husband and my children. But no one else knew. None of our friends, none of their family, nothing. And it was so incredibly a secret for them.
Wow.
The honor that sucked, right? Like,
you just had to carry that around knowing that.
Yeah. And I knew I had to tell people at some point, right? So on the day he rallied, I looked at him, I said, this is it. Like, who am I calling? Who gets to come in and say goodbye to you? Because you got to give people this. And he looked at me and he was like, fine. And he gave me this list and I contacted them. And my dad had an office wife who we loved dearly. And I contacted her way on because they worked together for like 35 years. And I just knew she had to know, because they were so close, that if it came to the last moment, she would be wrecked. So I called all the people, and he went to sleep, and he woke up and he looked at me and he said this name. He said Margie. And I think, oh my God, is this his secret? Like, is he
Margie's the other woman?
I'm like, oh God, what am I going to do with this? So I call this woman and I tell her who I am and I tell her what's going on. And she comes in. She becomes my fairy godmother. Like, I can't explain it, but this woman, we just connected, and it's like my dad gave me that final gift. Like, he's like, here's this beautiful soul that I know who's going to love you and accept you the way I do. And she does. And do you know, she's the only person who contacts me almost daily and asks me about me. Like, and this is no judgment to people out there. Like, if anybody ever sees this or listens to this, there are people that fall away from grief because it's so painful and so uncomfortable. They don't know what to say.
Well, yes. I mean, when my sister's husband passed away, he drowned suddenly in a boating accident. And, we just rallied around her and went there, but then everyone's life went back to normal. And her life was not normal, not going to be normal, not ever going to be like, and there was a new normal. And it wasn't that those people don't care about her, or those people people just don't know what to do, and their life moves on, but your grief remains the same. I've never experienced grief. My parents are both alive. I've never lost a husband, but I've witnessed it, firsthand. So, you're right. People go back to life, and it's nothing about them. It just is what happens.
Right. The problem is that because we don't talk about grief, like one of the things that I realized, and I have like pages and pages written about grief, and on my Instagram, I try to put that raw feeling out there, and what I get back from people in my, like in the little note sections sometimes, but sometimes in the direct messages, like, thank you. I needed to see that. I needed to hear that. Like yesterday I posted on somebody's in the grief community. I was like, F Easter and F everybody. And, my dad is dead. Like, that's all I can think about today. And that's where I was stuck. I was making ham and shit. And nobody wants to say, hey, how are you today? Except for a couple people. And I think that we all have to get better at showing up for people and saying the deceased person's name. And I can't stress that enough. Like,
well, that's why when I posted this, I didn't want to just post a picture of you. I wanted to post a picture of you and your dad.
Yeah, because this isn't about me. This is about the loss of the dad.
So if if people could go back and you could coach people on how to deal with someone, because what's going on with this pandemic right now, people are losing loved ones. Like, people are dying. If you could give people coaching, if you could give people advice, what do they say? Like, what would someone say to you that would like bring you some kind of relief? Or
they talk about it.
Okay.
Oh, did that come out? Just talk about them. Like when people say my dad's name, or like it's okay. His name is Alan.
Alan
Adresky. That's why I still try to keep my last name. I'm an only child, so he felt like, the name died with him. So he loved when I kept it. So I still use it. I get in trouble though.
It's okay. Brian gets it.
It's my name, damn it. I would say don't stop talking to them. Like, I have one friend whose husband died, and they have a daughter who's 26, 27. And like, I look at her grief. I had my dad until I was 48 years old, right? Like, so that's a long time. I know people who lose their father at very young ages. I have a friend whose wife died, and they've got 3 little girls. And the part that we all talk about is like, it still exists. Like, they're still part of our story. And when you ignore it, that's what hurts, because he's still my dad. He's still people that are gone. Like, this pandemic, they weren't expecting it, right? Like, I had an expectation. I was begging for him to go because it was so painful. Like, that's the gift of cancer. You look at cancer and you go, no, like, I'll pray for your death. Like, I don't want you to live like this. But when you have something like this, you're praying for them to live. And when you are just devastated, how do you pick up from there? Then who wants to talk about that with them? Even they don't want to talk about it sometimes. So then you're like, ooh, like, I got to be honest, most of my grief support has come from either words on a screen like Instagram. But I mean, hands down, I got so much support there because it's okay to be anonymous, right? You don't really know me, so I can tell you like F Easter. I don't care, like unfollow me. But like in real life, like people forget. Even my kids, sometimes they'll come home and they'll find me crying and they'll be like, what's wrong? What happened? And I'm like, my dad. And they're like, still?
Well, yeah, no, I mean, and I even asked that question today, right? When we were talking about doing this, this is a terrible question, and it's an honest question. And I'm like, both my parents are alive, so I don't have this, but it's the circle of life, right? Your parents are supposed to go before you. Yeah. What is there something that you feel like you could have done? Like, where does that pain come from? Is it regret of something, or is it just a void?
I mean, I think for some people you can put regret as the word, but I don't have any regrets. Like, when my dad and I found out that this was sort of what was going to happen, we really made a conscious effort, or I did, because I'm a that's what I do. I get people to do uncomfortable things all the time. I pushed it, and I brought up conversations, and we talked about things that he regretted and what his biggest regrets were. And, just those like last minute things of lots of I love yous and lots of wonderful stories about things they remember. Like that was great. Like you have to get out of your comfort zone. Like I can't stress this enough. Please go to your person that is dying and say what you want to say. Don't wait for tomorrow. Don't wait till the next time, because there's not necessarily going to be that. And that goes like even for like you and I, like we didn't talk for a really long time, but we were able to pick up immediately. I'm pretty sure like if one of us had died in that time, like we would have been like, oh my God, like why did I let that go?
Right. Well, and then I stalked you, and
I know. I did have a rough 19 months.
It's okay. I forgive you. We're here now. Well, I think if you could say, so we're talking about what the now what is. So you've lost someone, you're in grief. What are some things that you would tell to people because I don't want you to hate Easter every year. There's got to be some things that you can, perspective and refocus and we talk about with our people that we're coaching all the time, reframing a new perspective and what else can you make this mean? So what would you say is some things that you can do or that you've done that make you feel better? Just make you feel better.
So what it really did for me was it gave me a new purpose. Like grief has become my second purpose. My first one is addiction. I love everything about addiction. I know that's not going to follow.
Well, so tell people what you do for work.
So I'm an addiction professional. I specialize with recovery coaching mostly. I used to have all the fancy little letters at the end where I worked with insurances and hospitals. And then I found this niche of people that weren't necessarily going to get into 12-step programs, or they weren't willing to do a lot of stuff, but they were willing to sit in a room with me and talk about behavior change. So we identify behaviors, and then we find things that sort of like can be replaced and start using those. And then a lot of times they don't realize it, but I sneak a little 12-step recovery in there and let them know like what the value of that is. I just give addicts just a different perspective. That's all I do. So with grief, I went to my life coach and I was like a mess. And I was like, what am I going to do with all this pain? And she was like, make it a purpose. And so I was like, all right. So I started talking about grief, and I am a very, I don't want to say close, but I don't share easily. I don't like giving people my vulnerability. It's like something that I've always struggled with. And so I said, okay, this is what I'm going to do. And I asked my dad for his permission that I wanted to use his pictures because they weren't so very flattering. And I decided that I was going to start talking about grief as it happened. So every ugly moment, I promised myself that I would put something out there for someone else to read to validate them. So I'm not trying to reach mass quantities of people. I'll be happy if one other person reads something I say and goes, oh my God, thank you. I needed that perspective on it. I want people to find beauty in grief. That is truly one of my hashtags. I like to hashtag all the time. There is beauty in grief. There is. Mm-hmm. You can say there isn't, and you can be really angry, and you can spend the rest of your life being resentful, bitter, and jaded about grief, or you find the beauty.
Right.
Which that's what my dad and I chose to do, and it was pretty phenomenal.
Yeah.
Pretty phenomenal.
We're gonna put that up. Beauty and grief.
Yeah.
So is it the way you look at it? Is it the way you remember? Is it allowing yourself to feel like shit too? Like allowing yourself to be pissed off yesterday?
Yeah, I totally gave myself, like everybody obviously knows in the house, like mom's coming up. This is the week. My dad died on the 16th. Like, this is it. Like, she's going to lose her shit. And so I've been a little testy, and but yesterday it just hit me. It was so weird where it came from. I wasn't expecting it yesterday, but I think I was trying to tell you that, like, he died on the 16th. Easter was on the 22nd last year. This year it came before his actual death. So I'm like, I reminisce, I go through my Instagram, I documented it all because I knew I wouldn't remember it. And there's some beautiful stuff that happened. If anybody ever wants to look at it, it's at grateful_gal_. It was just such a beautiful experience that even sometimes when I read it, I'm like, oh God, how lucky was I? I was so lucky. There were so many beautiful things. And I just want people to find that. Try to figure out where the beauty is. I have a friend who has a son who was 3, and She's
I can't even like
right.
stomach
That's
that.
sort of the trump card in my opinion. Like if I say, oh, my dad died, like someone goes, oh, my kid died, I'm like, oh. My dad used to say to me, he would say, how are you handling this? And I'm like, as long as I never bury my children, I will carry you and my mother to the grave. And I meant it. And so did they. They were like, absolutely. You don't bury your children.
Right. And I think that, you know what? Some of the same stuff applies, meaning like some of the same things that you did also apply to people that lose their kids, because I mean, I know people that lost their kids. I know you do. So, I mean, the same steps probably apply.
Yeah. Like I wish I had more courage with this one friend of mine because I never brought him up and I knew about the story.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't imagine. And she carries it so well. She says his name. She just posted something of him recently. I would put her name out there, but I don't have her permission. But she is one of the strongest women I've ever met. She ended up just raising these two beautiful children despite that tragedy. So like for me, she was always that person that as my dad was dying, I would look at it and say, like, if she can get through this, I'll get through it. I'll totally get through it. I mean, it is the circle of life. It just doesn't feel, you never feel the same again. Someone said to me, her name was Michelle. She said, all I can say, it was very abrasive when she said it, it sucks. It just sucks. And that's the final thing. And it's going to suck every day after. And I was like,
Yeah.
Ooh. And she's right. It still sucks the same. I can still find beauty and I can still live a really good, full life if I don't get lost in the grief, right? So that's why finding the beauty in it has to be the goal. Every step of the journey, like we have to find the beauty part.
Well, and you know, gratitude is such a huge thing for you too, and I think it's gratitude is such a great healer.
Oh yes, yes.
You know, and you know, we talk about my sister's husband when it's appropriate, and we talk about, you know, her son was 3 months old when he died, and you know, we talk about with her son, with my nephew, that you know he's the angel daddy, and she was fortunate and met this amazing man who stepped in and raised Trey as, you know, as his own. But his father, his birth father, his biological father, never goes out. He's never like put on the back burner. Like,
no,
he's not that. No.
No, and I think that it's really hard, right? Like he's never going to know what he missed, right? He'll always miss not having a father, but he doesn't understand what he's missing. I just actually told a friend of mine a great grief thing to employ with the little ones, right? So if you have little kids, if everyone writes a story in a book, just a notebook, it doesn't have to be a special anything, or puts a picture, you know, or writes a story that they remember, a funny thing or whatever. It's something that this little kid's going to grow up and can either read, like have someone read to him, but putting stories down as you think about them and then putting them in a book for the child, or having them be a part of it. Hey, let's write a story about your dad. Dad loved airplanes. You know, like whatever it is that you want to give this child to remember, help them write the story because it becomes more tactile. Like they can feel it. They can see it on the person's face. You know,
right.
Like
one of the things that my sister found in this process is a lot of the books that people wrote were not about how to live beyond this. It was about how to be in it.
Yes.
So she wrote a book called I Wore White, because she did. She wore white to his funeral. She wore colors to the burial. And she was trying to figure out, how do I live in this? How do I move on from this? So I think there's a lot of work that we can do about how to help people really move through these things. And it's not, it's the death of a marriage. It's the death of a pet. It's the death of a friendship. I mean, some of the greatest, you know, grief that I've had is just loss of friendships through the things that I've gone through, you know, with my divorce and what happened in my life. I mean, I lost a lot of friends. I lost a lot of connection. And that's what kept me up at night a lot too, is yes, you know, did I go through this divorce with my ex-husband? Yeah, but a lot of people just decided that I was not going to be part of their life anymore. And that was really hard because they were still alive. Like, I'm still here. They're still there. And then that's all the shame and the judgment that you take on with that kind of grief.
Yeah. And right, like nobody wants to talk about that either. Like, thank God that you have the strength to want to put that out there, right? Like, it takes a lot of guts and vulnerability to go, you know, like, this is what happened to me and this is how my moment was born. People don't like the feelings. They don't like to acknowledge that they exist. I always say to people, if they say something to me about my dad, or if they, some stranger last night, I guess, saw my pain because we're in the same grief community, and he said some really nice things and is now going to dedicate he donates his blood and plasma for his dad who died from cancer. And so his thing is every month he goes and he donates blood and plasma. And so in that, he said, I want to do something for you and your dad, and I'm going to dedicate this next thing that I do for him. And I thought, what a gift. Like, I was just so blown away. And there was my beauty and grief moment, right? Like, so I just have to be willing to see it and acknowledge that it happened.
Yeah. Well, and focus on, like, there is so much love if you look for it. There's so much support if you look for it. But if you stay in this grief, in this victim place, you can't even see what's there for you. And I'm not here to tell anyone how much time they need, how to deal with it, but I'm just here to say that, like, there are lots of people that are going to love you through it. Just receive it. Because most people don't know how to express condolences in a way that is comfortable. I mean, it's just fucking uncomfortable. Let's just be honest. I want to read a
book on what to say. Like, don't ask someone who just had someone die. Don't say, how are you? Because
that's shitty.
Right. Like, what do you have in my mouth right now? But, you know, like, when you feel bad for the person across from you, so you say something like, yeah, I'm dealing. I mean, many times I wanted to be like, my dad died. So what do you think I'm doing?
I think that I don't know that there is a good thing to say, because I think the person that's asking the question is just as uncomfortable as the person receiving the question.
Yes. I used to always say, I never want to say I'm sorry at someone's death. I'm sorry for your loss. Like, that was always uncomfortable for me. So now I say to them, I pray for your peace and comfort, because, like, that's what I know they need. I know they need peace and comfort. They don't need my apology. So stop saying I'm sorry, everyone. You don't have to be sorry.
Well, I think the ultimate thing is just speak from the heart.
Definitely. Don't be afraid.
Yeah. And for those people that are going through it or have been through it, just ask for help. If you're suffering, just ask for help.
You'll be surprised where it comes from. It didn't come from who I thought it was going to come from, my support. It came from these people that were from my dad's life, who missed him as much as I did, or close to, where they sent me stories about him. Oh, I remember this. I remember him that. And that was so fantastic for me. So fantastic. So, like, if you know a story about a deceased person that's going to put a smile on someone's face, like, take the time, write it down, send it in a letter. You don't even have to be there for it.
Yeah.
We love those things. We love, love, love to hear about our deceased person.
Yeah.
Or I do.
Well, I think it's important for people to talk about this. I know it's a hard topic, and I wanted to give you a place to kind of get this shit out of your body today.
Yeah, just right here in virtual.
And just to help other people. I mean, that's the whole purpose of this conversation, is to help other people. So, I think that we are going to feel there's a lot of pain that people are going to go through as a result of what's happening in the world. And we just have to be kind. Just be kind.
Please be kind.
You don't know what people are going through. People have there's lots of loss. People have lost their jobs. People have lost, afraid of losing their home. So at the grocery store, just be kind.
Yeah, right.
In the neighborhood, just be kind. Just be kind. One of the greatest lessons I hope that I can teach my children is, no matter what's going on in your day, be kind, because you don't know what's going on in someone else's day.
Without a doubt. I talk to everybody. I try to lead goodness wherever I am. Like, I try to be nice. Like, I think if more of us did that, my kids always say, God, do you have to talk to everybody? Well,
yes, I do have to talk to everybody.
I have to lead goodness. They're like, it's not your job to make everybody happy.
Is there one message that what would you want your dad to know about you tonight? What would you want Alan to know about you today, the woman you are today, that he'd be proud of?
I have great kids.
Yeah, you do. And Gina, you have come through so much, and I'm so proud to be your friend. And if I could, I would hug you whether we have social distancing or not.
I would totally hug you. Right.
Well, I know that your dad is super proud of you. And I know that this message, someone's sending something. Look at this.
Greetings from Costa Rica. I feel like that's not real. Do we know him?
I don't know, but he's watching us.
Daniel.
And, I think a lot of people are going to watch this, maybe not all right now, but I think that this is good. This is what we should be doing.
You're like Barbara Walters. You made me cry.
I'm not like Barbara Walters. I will say my most recent experience with death was Jason's father passed away in August. And I went to I met his family. The first time I met his family was
nice.
Was the passing of his father. And I stood there for 5 hours. Did we stand there? 6, 7 hours, like meeting people that he touched their lives. And he drove school buses and was a UPS man. And it was the saddest loss of a man I never met.
Oh yes. Don't you love it though? All those stories, didn't you just love it? Didn't Jason just love it?
Yeah. It was, and they just kept coming and coming and coming. And that was, it was I felt grateful to be a part of that experience. I was glad to stand next to him and hold him up when I needed to.
That's right. Like, that's so beautiful. You got to be a part of that, right?
Yeah. And I didn't hesitate. Like I just didn't, because that, that's who you have to be for. Oh, Daniel says that he's real. That's funny. But anyway, I think, I don't know, just be nice. So what?
This is a good one.
Yeah. It's not so what is not negating that you lost your dad. You know what I mean? It's not a negation, but it's so what? This has happened. Like, mutually, factually, this has happened. So now what? You're going to not beat yourself up for feeling like shit. You're not going to dwell. We're not going to feel like a victim. And we are going to just, find the beauty in it. So I think that's where we leave it tonight.
Okay.
How do you feel?
I feel really good. I'm really glad that we got to do this. I hope, can I post this on my Instagram?
Of course, you can post it anywhere you want.
I would love for them to just see. I think they would love this. Like, it just feels like,
they'd be really proud of you.
I don't know if they're proud of me, but I think that it just gives our whole thing is giving grief.
What's the name of the group?
What group? Oh, it's a bunch of people like snapshots after loss. I mean, I'll send them to you and you can post them on your thing.
Well, no, I was just gonna tag it in this right now.
Oh, I can tell you. Does this have to end right this second? I feel like. Oh, okay. Let me tell you what they are, because these people, they're really who gave me this voice that I didn't know that I had. Mm-hmm. So there is.
Is it like a hashtag or something that we can put up?
No, it's at Color of Grief.
Color of Grief.
Mm-hmm. Okay. That's a funny story. Remind me to tell you about Color of Grief.
At Color of Grief.
That's one. At Grieving Family. At Port Norman JPN. He's the one who.
Hold on. I can type that fast.
Oh, sorry. I'm fine. All over this thing.
I'm gonna that.
Grieving is
I spelled it wrong.
That's okay.
It's okay.
I still say the song in my head from
I before E, except after C. I did it the first way, right?
To this day, I'm so silly.
There we go.
Oh, this girl, we have to definitely tag her. Glenn B. Man. She climbed, what did she climb? She climbed a mountain, man, for her dad, in honor of her dad. Where is she? Mount Kilimanjaro. She climbed Mount Kilimanjaro in her dad's honor. I was like, oh my God, just drop the mic. Like, no one can outdo that one.
What's her name? What is it?
At GLYN B Man. And they have their own, she works.
CLYNB Man.
Yep.
Okay.
And then the last one that I really want to put up there is Snapshots of Life After Loss. It's a really long one, but that's like one of my favorite places for just feeling better. None of these pages are like about feeling bad. It just honors when you do.
Is that right? Did I do that right?
Glenn, GLY.
GLY. Oh my goodness.
I know.
GLYNBMAN. Oh my God. I need to put why am I doing this without my glasses?
Right. I know. I didn't wear mine.
YNBMAN.
I look much smarter. Like I should be a PhD.
Okay, disregard that last one. Okay, how about this?
Yes, that's it. And then we'll put them on later. This is.
Well, no, it's okay. We're just writing in the comments. What is the last one?
Snapshots of Life After Loss. You know, in the grieving community, we're just looking for people to sort of mirror what we're feeling. We just want to feel normal. We just want to feel like this is okay.
Yeah.
Grieving Family and Snapshots After Loss really do a great job. They will showcase different people. They'll write things, these big, huge shares from different people who have suffered grief. They're just doing a lot for the Instagram grief community.
Wow. I know that I can't even wrap my head around the day that I have to have the same conversation that we had about my dad or my mom. So
I got you.
I know. I know.
I love it. I've opened up my practice a little bit to like a grief coach. Like someone called it a death doula. I don't know if I want to do that, but I want to help people like.
That's a little crazy, death doula.
I know it does, but God, I would have killed to have a death. I was like my own death doula.
What do you guys think? Like, I want to hear if anyone wants to comment about that. What do you guys think of a death doula? Do you have any opinions about that? They exist?
Wow. I don't know if I'm prepared. Like my dog, Ginger, is my grief therapy. She is exactly everything I needed. I'm training her to become a dog that goes to visit hospice centers, because that was the best thing about being in hospice with my dad is I got to sign up for therapy dogs. So every day I had a therapy dog come and hang out with me. It was awesome. So I was like, that's it. That's Ginger. I need a therapy dog.
Right. All right. So, yeah, definitely. I will send you the link so you can post this in your Instagram. I think this was super valuable for people. And I think this is not the last time we'll have this conversation. And I think we'll come back and talk about, addiction, because that is definitely so what.
Definitely.
I love you. Don't hang up. We're going to end the broadcast, but you and I are going to stay right here in the green room. Love you all.